this video, I continue my series of Dollarama art challenges. I continue trying out some of the different supplies and using the ones I have. Now I'm using my toned craft paper sketchbook, which I really like. I'm decided to start a new one, which is the last one I have, sadly, as I haven't been able to find this type of sketchbook at Dollarama for a long time. Although I look every single time I go in. I think it's been since late 2018 that I got my replacement one that I just started here. I'm actually finishing up the very end of an old one and filling in more of the pages in the sketchbook that weren't done in order to do a sketchbook tour coming up of another tone tan sketchbook like this one. Here I'm using these very strange gouache watercolor cakes that I got at Dollarama. They were seen in the previous video. They're very odd. I call them gouache colors and they work very strangely. I think they're actually watercolor stones, like more the old Japanese style, but I've never tried any watercolors like them. They're hard, they're difficult to grab paint from. I very much advise you spray them with a water spritzer ahead of time and let the water soak in before using. Some of the colors also brighten and lighten as they dry, such as the white here, which is actually quite opaque. When you first put it down wet, it doesn't show up anywhere near as opaquely or obviously as if you actually leave it for several minutes to dry, it'll brighten up and turn more opaque and more bright white. Some of the colors have huge drying shifts, while others barely seem to change at all. It also flakes off in high amounts and is very, very hard to describe, but it's weird to use. Each different paper reacts differently. This is true for all media, so I always advise you do lots of paper tests. But in the case of this paint, it is particularly obvious that it works different on different paper surfaces. So I definitely wouldn't class it more as a true gouache. It's very odd. Some colors show up much more vibrantly than others, and there's a lot of odd issues with this paint. I'm still going to try to get use out of it sometimes, but it's not particularly pleasant to use, and I can't really advise it for people. These tone tan craft sketchbooks, however, I absolutely adore and have been using for years, and if you do find one at a Dollarama, snatch it up. Oh no, now that I'm saying that, maybe it'll be even harder for me to find them, but I digress. I really do hope to get more of these tone sketchbooks. They are one of the amazing supplies at Dollarama, whereas this strange watercolor isn't. As you can see, I let it fully dry, and the white actually got so much brighter than it was before. I'm going in with some cheap, various Dollarama available colored pencils. I'm using Crayola colored pencils here, even if I didn't buy them exactly at Dollarama. I don't know where I bought them. I bought them a long time ago. I do know that these exact pencils are available at Dollarama. I'm also using pencils I know I did buy at Dollarama. For all the supplies seen in this series of videos, I've been collecting for more than a decade at Dollarama. Some are more recently purchased, whereas some might have been from many years ago, and I cannot guarantee the availability of any of the supplies in any region or location, or whether or not they are discontinued products, because as I said, I'm using many years of collected supplies for this series. Off screen, I actually have the reference of the frog up on an old printed page I did a long time ago from a photo I took of a poison dart frog at the Metro Toronto Zoo way back when I visited in 2012. It also wasn't a particularly great camera, but I still know I own the rights to that photo, so I have no issues with using it to make art. This bird here is a completely invented and just imagined species from vague and more specific bird knowledge I have. It's in general referencing geese and chickens for its anatomy. I'm going over things also with ballpoint pens. So ballpoint pens like the Inkjoy are fully available at Dollarama, and you don't have to break the bank to still create art. Certain supplies are extremely excellent from Dollarama, while others are probably worth skipping. Some can be used well with certain papers and surfaces and not with others. Some you can figure out new techniques to use on a particular paper if you want to insist on finding a way of using your supplies. I think it's a good idea to try different things rather than assuming, but at the same time, sometimes it's nice to know what's good and what isn't before spending your money. I tried out those water-based markers a moment ago. Here I'm trying out all the different Inkjoys to draw a mandarin duck from a public domain reference. The thing is, when it comes to drawing things, you can consider using different tools than you always do and using mixed media. Sometimes you can discover new techniques and new ways to do art that are really fun. I'm not going for perfection, I'm working in a more sketchy style here, and I'm using the ballpoint pens in various colors to make a sort of color hold style, and I'm using a color closest to what I feel the lines would be in that area or to what the colors are in the area, and I'm also trying to get the general idea down. I was trying to get the reflection here to match a little better than it ended up being, but I'm still happy with the overall piece. I was thinking about how I think these pens would work well with the way the gouache colors show up on this paper, and I did a test elsewhere and realized yes, it actually does look pretty good in my opinion, so I decided to do a full picture here for the video. I worked through all the different pens, picking up the different colors I feel are appropriate and going back over things. Now that I've let it set in the paper for a little while, I come back with the weird watercolor set and I work things up in layers, understanding that some of the colors are going to shift more or less when they dry. Having practiced with these strange gouache color paints for a while, I started to get the hang of how to use them a bit better. Which colors show up which way, and which ones can I take advantage of the opacity in order to do something more interesting than a standard watercolor? The fact that I know some of these colors are more opaque and more vibrant can actually be used well for something like this mandarin duck. These kind of ducks are more bold and they have fairly vibrant colors, so using paints that matches that works better. I also practiced with the timing of how long to wait between spritzing to get the ideal amount of paint up to make it more vibrant and opaque. It's hard to describe, but you have to spray them fairly often. They're really dry and thirsty and they want lots of water, but if you soak it up too soon, it won't have had enough time to soak into the paint, and if you wait too long, it'll dry back out. So I advise you actually spritz it a lot. I spritzed it very often to get the better use of it. I have to say that these are very strange. They're weirdly fascinating to use. It almost makes me want to use them more just because they're so weird. And sometimes getting out of your comfort zone and doing something different can help you get out of a creative rut and can help you think outside of the box and more creatively. But sometimes the supply just doesn't vibe well with you, or frankly isn't very good, and that can also make you not want to make art, make you frustrated. Or just the way a particular art program or a particular supply works is just not for you, even if other people love it. So sometimes you have to accept that a supply doesn't work well with you. Also, I like to collect art supplies and keep them forever because I might get back into the mood for something I wasn't in the mood for when I first bought it. I've never regretted keeping an art supply that I went back to later, but I have regretted any time I would consider giving things away. Although normally I just keep everything because, as I know that maybe in 2-3 years I'll be in the mood for it again. So I'm working with this white here as well to add highlights and special effects because it is much more opaque than a watercolor should be. It's more like a gouache, like I said, but it's actually going to dry more opaque and vibrant, which I have to keep in mind. And I also added in some of the background from the reference photo just with the paint without any guidelines from the ink. I did this as well because I wanted the foreground to have the lines because it's closer and more vibrant, and the background didn't have any to help represent that it's farther away. The other thing is I can get much more painterly and loose when I haven't put any lines down first and when I'm just trying to quickly get something down. The background's supposed to be blurred, and in the original photo it's actually quite blurry while the duck is in focus, so I'm trying to capture that here. I wasn't too concerned with getting everything exactly perfect. Here is the final artwork after it's dried. Notice how much more vibrant and opaque the white is. The white is much more vibrant and opaque after I've let it dry for a little while. Interesting. More in this series soon. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Once again, that's all for this video. If you like my videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to all notifications so you will know when a new video comes up. I aim for new videos every Wednesday, but sometimes life happens and things are delayed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with another one very soon.